As all of you probably already know by now, there was a pretty big weapons patch that came out on Tuesday and affected pretty much what people consider to be the best weapons in the game. The Maddox, the SOG, the Titan. So what I thought I would do today is go through and talk about what I believe are now the top 5 weapons in Black Ops 4 after the Tuesday's patch. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we dive into what I believe are the top 5 weapons is these are the top 5 weapons in public matches. As you guys may know, League Play was added into Black Ops 4 today, and with the League Play set of rules, the same as CWL, there's a bunch of things that are banned, like high caliber, certain perks and attachments, which mean the best weapons in Pro League are not going to be the best weapons in public matches. So for this video, we are specifically talking about public matches. We're going to go through, I'm going to give you all 5 of my favorite weapons, and then on top of that, a class to go with them as well. Now, speaking of Pro League, I'm actually going to be live streaming later tonight, probably around 7:30 or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm actually going to be doing a Pro League open lobby, which means you guys are actually going to get the chance to play some competitive games with me, and of course, I'm going to be live streaming it on Twitch. So if you want to play some Black Ops 4 with me, if you want to check out me live streaming, it'll be the first link down in the description, and hopefully I see you there later tonight. Now, I got to start this video out by saying some of this list comes down to personal preference. These are my top 5 weapons in Black Ops 4. You may disagree with me, and if you do, feel free to let me know what your favorite weapons are down in the comments below. On top of that, if you do enjoy the video and you find it informative, I would love it if you could hit that like button, because generally with lists like this that come down to personal preference, these videos tend to get a lot more dislikes than my normal videos just because I'm giving my opinion on the game. So if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. But first of all, I want to start out with some honorable mentions. So 2 weapons that are not on this list that are still good even after the patch are the SOG 9mm and the Maddox. I believe that these 2 weapons are the best weapons in Pro League or CWL or Pro Play. And first of all, both of these weapons were nerfed on Tuesday. However, the Maddox actually got rebuffed. Originally, they made it so that there was a lot more recoil for the first 5 bullets. Now there's only more recoil for like the 4th and 1st bullets or something weird like that. But even with the nerfs that happened to these 2 weapons, they are still definitely really good and some of the best weapons in the game. But with the certain attachments that aren't allowed, other weapons are 100% better in multiplayer in public matches, and that is what we are talking about today. Speaking of which, coming in at number 6, no, you didn't hear me wrong, I am putting 6 weapons on this list. I know the video is called Top 5, but there's 6 weapons I really want to tell you guys about. So, coming in at number 6, we have the Vapor. This may actually surprise a lot of people, but with the most recent update, first of all, one of its ranges was changed from 34 yards to 50 yards, which is a huge deal. It was its 5 bullet kill range. On top of that, its idle sway was decreased, which means it's a lot easier to aim than it previously was. On top of that, when we look at the class setup I'm using here, I'm using rapid fire and high caliber, 2 attachments that they don't allow in Pro League. Because of these 2 attachments, this gun has one of the fastest time to kills in the game as long as you hit a headshot. Only 1 headshot makes it so that this gun absolutely melts. Now, the other attachments I'm using are the ELO and the stock. That's just so it's easier to aim because I don't really like the iron sights, and also then I can strafe fire a little better. And then in every single class you see, my perks will be the same: Engineer, Gung Ho, and Dead Silence on every single one of my classes. Another good gun that a lot of people use is the Rampart, and it has high caliber 1 and high caliber 2. The big difference though is the Rampart has a much slower fire rate. And last night on my live stream, I was using the Rampart and Vapor a lot, and I found myself getting outgunned by the Vapor when I was using the Rampart. So that's kind of why I decided that the Vapor was going to come in at number 5. That being said, the Maddox or the Rampart could definitely take this place 100%. And absolutely 100% in Pro League or CWL, the Maddox is the best assault rifle. But once again, that's because you can't use high caliber. Up next at number 5, we've got the Spitfire. Now, this is a gun that a lot of people used before the patch, and it does take quite a bit of skill to use because it has a very high amount of recoil. But up close, there is no beating the Spitfire, especially if you use the Operator mod, which once again is not allowed in the Pro League. Now, as far as the class that I am using on the Spitfire, so I use Quick Draw, Stock, and Extended Mags. Now, this is my personal favorite class. I don't necessarily think it's the best class. This is just what I enjoy. A lot of people use the operator mod Wildfire on it, and I think that the gun is actually much better when you use it, but it's very hard to control. So unless you're a really good player, good at controlling recoil, I don't recommend it. Now, I bet you there's going to be some argument in the chat whether or not this weapon should be the Spitfire or the SOG. Now, the reason why I chose the Spitfire is because if you get into an up-close gunfight, one-on-one, Spitfire versus SOG, the Spitfire is going to win, especially if you're using the operator mod. However, the mobility is a little bit better on the SOG, but that being said, with the most recent patch, that was nerfed. So now the mobility is the same on both the Spitfire and the SOG. So technically, the Spitfire should win every single gunfight head-to-head. So that's why I chose the Spitfire, but of course, as I said earlier, the SOG is still definitely a very good weapon, and a lot more people use it in Pro League. I think it's just because it has a little bit more range than the Spitfire does. But let me know, now that the patch has come out, what do you use more? Do you use the Spitfire more? Do you use the SOG more? Let me know what you think down in the comment. Now, coming in at number 4, this is the wild card. This is the one that I think a lot of people aren't going to be happy with, or at least surprised by, and it's the MOG 12. Now, the thing with the MOG 12 is you have to use very specific attachments for it to be incredible. You have to use long barrel, barrel choke, and finally Dragon's Breath. If you use all 3 of these attachments, this gun has a ton of range and you're almost always going to get a one-shot kill. This is probably my new favorite weapon to use, but only with these attachments. If you don't use these attachments, this gun is absolute garbage. So there's kind of an asterisk beside this one. Now, the reason why I say that this one is so good after the patch is because they buffed 3 things: the MOG itself, the barrel choke, and the Dragon's Breath. So the MOG and the barrel choke now have better range, but on top of that, the Dragon's Breath no longer does damage over time. It just does one big chunk of damage right at the beginning when you hit your shot, which means your enemies will no longer have that extended period of time where they can kill you while the Dragon's Breath is doing its damage, which means there'll be less kill trades with this weapon. Now, the downside is you actually have to level up the weapon and unlock these attachments, but if you already have them unlocked, try out this class, because I'm telling you, you can absolutely shred with this gun, especially on the smaller maps, the seasides, the haciendas, the summits. This is pretty much my go-to gun on those maps now. Now, the next one's the frustrating one. Up next at number 3, it's the Titan. So the Titan did get nerfed, but it got nerfed improperly. The Titan got nerfed so that it's less good at taking out score streaks. The gun is still just as effective against people unless they have 200 health from crash. That is really the only time the Titan is any worse and that the nerf actually made a difference. Other than that, the Titan just isn't as good as taking out score streaks as it previously was. Now, the reasons why the Titan is so damn good is, first of all, it just has no recoil. This thing, you just point, shoot, and it kills someone because there's absolutely no recoil, which means it's so incredibly easy to use. On top of that, the mobility of the Titan is equal to an SMG, so you can move just as easily around with a Titan, a weapon with 50 rounds in a magazine, as you can with an SMG, a weapon with 26 rounds in a magazine. Now, Treyarch, if you're listening to this and want to know how to properly nerf the Titan, I'll give you 2 ways that it's very, very simple to do. First of all, add more recoil to the weapon. Not a lot, don't make it unusable, but just a little bit more recoil or a slower center speed, one of the 2. On top of that, make it like Black Ops 3, where if you use a thermal sight, the weapon no longer has aim assist. This makes it so it's way more difficult for people to just sit at the back of the map with a thermal scope and pick you off. That is the difference between this game and Black Ops 3's thermal scope. Black Ops 3, it had no aim assist, so it was a little bit more balanced. This game, your thermal has aim assist, so it's incredibly obnoxious for people who are using it and camping with it. In other words, a whole bunch of you Torque players. Now, as far as what class setup I use with this weapon, I use a red dot simply because I don't like the iron sights. I also use FMJ, Quick Draw, and Stock. I truly believe that this is pretty much the best class setup for this weapon, so I really do recommend trying those out. And once again, my perks are exactly the same: Engineer, Gung Ho, Dead Silence. Now, coming in at number 2, for those of you who follow the channel, who follow me on Twitch and watch me play this game a lot, you should have seen this one coming a mile away. It is the Auger. Now, this weapon is my favorite weapon in the game. I love it. I use it all the time. And somehow, even though this weapon was already good before, they gave it a buff. First of all, they made it so that you can move faster when you're aiming down sights. This is just a very, very, very small buff, but they also buffed the fire rate. They buffed it from about a 320 RPM fire rate to a 370 RPM fire rate. And it's definitely noticeable. The weapon's that much better. On top of that, if you like using the operator mod, they also buffed the operator mod as well. Honestly, this gun has one of the fastest time to kills when you use this class setup. I use red dot. Once again, I don't like the iron sights. You have to use high caliber 1, high caliber 2, and I also use FMJ just because of those pesky body armor players. Now, before they gave this weapon a buff, it already had one of the fastest time to kills with high caliber 1 and 2 on it. Now that they did this gun is just a beast. Essentially, the only way to beat someone who is using this weapon is to get up close with an SMG. Other than that, this gun is just gonna win at long range unless you get sniped or something. So I really highly recommend trying out this class. It is my favorite thing in the game. So if you haven't yet, give it a shot. And if you have, let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Now at this point, you may be thinking, you've just gone through every one of the best weapons in the game. You already told us that the Maddox and the SOG aren't on the list, so what in the hell is number 1? Well, in my opinion, the best weapon in the game is actually a DLC weapon, the Damon 3XB. So this is from Operation Absolute Zero, and it's a burst action SMG. If you've never used this thing before, it is godly. Now, the gun itself is good alone, but the attachments that you can use on it are really what make this thing amazing. So the class that I'm using here are ELO, High Caliber 1, High Caliber 2, and Hybrid Mags. Now, it is possible to switch out that Hybrid Mags for Rapid Fire, but I find that Rapid Fire doesn't make too big of a difference on this weapon, so I definitely recommend High Caliber 1 and 2. Now, the magic of the Damon is that even if you get into a long-range gunfight with this thing, it essentially has no recoil, which means even though you should be losing gunfights because you're using an SMG, this thing has such a good fire rate and so little recoil that at long range, I am outgunning assault rifles with this thing. Now, I just happened to run across this weapon last night while streaming. Someone recommended that I use it. Someone on the other team was doing very well with it. And after using it, I can say with almost 100% certainty that I believe that this is the best weapon in the game. It can be used in any situation on any map because of the low recoil. On top of that, with the most recent patch, it got a very small buff to its range, which made it even better. But if you haven't tried this thing out, just give it a shot. It's absolutely incredible. Now, the downside to this being the best weapon in the game is that you could no longer get it through the tier system. I believe the only way you can unlock this thing is through the reserve system, which is complete and utter garbage. We talked about that in a previous video. I'm not going to go into it here, but hopefully you guys already do have this weapon, and if you haven't given it a shot, try this thing out, because I'm telling you, it is incredible. But guys, those are my top 5 weapons. Actually, I guess my top 6 weapons in Black Ops 4. Hopefully you enjoyed the list. Hopefully you found something new that you can give a shot. If you enjoyed the video, if you found it informative, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. Like I said earlier, there's going to be people out there who disagree with me and are going to dislike the video because of that. So if you did enjoy it, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. Also, if you're new to the channel and like what you see and want to stay up to date on all my content, the best way to do so is make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you have notifications turned on. Also, as I said before, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I think I came across some pretty cool classes here, so hopefully I could help you out. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are